When I was prepping for this video, I don't know why, but I was ready to tear OneDrive and SharePoint apart. And I've heard so much stuff about how SharePoint isn't really that good. I wasn't a big fan when I used them quite a while ago, but I was really pleasantly surprised by the improvements they made in file collaboration and using OneDrive to sync files to your computer. And I'd have to say, I'm super impressed. So what I would love to do in this video is we're gonna go over those improvements in Microsoft OneDrive and SharePoint. And so let's go ahead and hop over and do that now. As I jump in, I do want to remind you guys that we are consultants. So if you ever do have any questions, you can reach out to us at support@nexttechconsultants.com, and we'd love to help you in your business needs. You can also find us on social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at NextTechNT. Just like our Google Drive video, we went over 5 features you need to be a Google admin guru, but we're going to do that with Microsoft OneDrive. So 5 features that you need. We're going to go over terminology. So what's the difference between OneDrive and SharePoint? What does it mean? File sharing, how to share files between your colleagues or external users. File collaboration, how do you collaborate on a file using comments or in real-time collaboration using Word? We're going to go over SharePoint. Really briefly, that could be an entire video on itself, but we're going to kind of hit that briefly, kind of the differences between SharePoint and OneDrive. Then finally, we're going to talk about syncing with the Outlook OneDrive app. So first things first, we're going to talk about the terminology of OneDrive and SharePoint. So OneDrive, think of that as more like personal files, files that you're using as a user that you want to store. You can share these out with friends, with external colleagues, stuff like that. SharePoint, think of that as more organization files. So a lot of people where I used to work call it the Y drive or the Z drive or the S drive, whatever you want to call it, but a drive that is shared mainly with your colleagues. You can share externally, but that has a lot of permission things with the way your SharePoint is set up for your organization. But yeah, so OneDrive, mainly think of that as personal files. SharePoint, think of that as more organization files. Obviously, with any online platform, you do want to be able to share files. So we're going to go ahead and hop over the computer. I'm going to show you that. But as we jump over, just so you know, OneDrive and SharePoint, there's a lot of similarities in how you share it. The main difference is that in SharePoint, there's a lot of organization settings that your admin can set up and change. So in some organizations, you can't share externally, or in some organizations, you can only share to certain people. SharePoint has an astronomical amount of permissions, and that would be a whole video in itself. We're not going to cover that. But yeah, let's hop over the computer and I'll show you different sharing techniques and how you can share files in OneDrive. All right, so sharing in OneDrive can really happen in one of 2 ways. So first, you can share if you're in the OneDrive app. If you haven't installed it, jump later in the video, links in the description below for timestamps for all these things. But go ahead and right click on a file or a folder and you can click share. At that point, you can type it in. Here's what's really interesting about sharing in OneDrive is that the default is anyone with the link can edit. I would highly recommend changing that to specific people. And then you give them access based on the email that they have. Anyone with the link becomes really, like it says, anyone with the link. So it's a really big security risk. I would, unless you really want this to be a public file, don't leave that anyone with a link. Choose specific people, click apply, and then go ahead and type in the email address of the person you're trying to share. So I'm going to share it with Anna. And then you just go ahead, you can type in a message if you want, or actually you got to go to the next box. So go ahead and type that in, whatever you want to say, test, share, and then click send. And so that person's going to receive an email, they can accept it, and they'll be able to see the file. Similarly, in the browser, if you go to your OneDrive app, and where I go, the website I go to is always login to office365.com, and it takes you to your homepage after you log in. So then you click on OneDrive, and you can choose any files or folders to share. So there's just this little share button next to it, and you're going to share it, type in the name, same thing, exact same window pops up. It's just like it's opening a web browser when you do it on your OneDrive app. So the same window pops up, you're going to say specific people, apply, and you're going to type in the name of that person and send it. So that's how you share on OneDrive. All right, so sharing in SharePoint, what you do is you just click on the little app menu, choose SharePoint, and you go to your shared folder. So in documents, it's almost identical, not even almost, it is identical. You're just going to click share, and it's going to pop up. Here is the trick. Notice here, my organization prevents me from sharing anyone with the link. So in SharePoint, I can't do that. I can only share to people in my business, people with existing access or specific people. You have a choice whether you're going to allow editing just like before. So I'm going to say specific people, and you can go ahead and share it out. And it's going to be just like the same. The only difference is this link up here. See how it says nexttechconsulting.sharepoint.com. This link is the name of your business that you first set up when you set up Microsoft Office 365. And if you want to change that, we can talk about that later, but that's the link they're going to get sent, is this specific link here, and then they'll be able to log in. So that's sharing in SharePoint. It's very similar. Obviously, there's a lot of permission things that you can do, and your organization can lock this down a bit more in SharePoint. That was the main difference that I want to show you. All right, now we're going to move into my favorite category in both Google Drive and in OneDrive, file collaboration. So in this day and age, it's super important that you can collaborate with your team on the files you're working on. What Google Drive did, or Google did in Google Docs, they really piloted the idea of two people working in the document at the same time. Microsoft has been trying to catch up to that, and they're actually doing really well now. And I'm super excited to show you these features. What I like about OneDrive's ability, or Microsoft's option, is that you can use the web app for Word, or you can use the local version of Word, which we're all familiar with. So you don't have to change the platform you're using to collaborate with your teammate or your coworkers. So what we're going to do is we're going to hop over the computer. I'm going to show you kind of how you collaborate, how you make comments, and when you collaborate and you're on different platforms, like if you're using Outlook web app or if you're using the desktop version of Word, I'm going to show you kind of the differences and what happens there. So let's hop over to the computer and do that now. So what I have here is the same document open in two different accounts. On the right side, this is my account. On the left side, this is Anna's account. So what I'm trying to show you is the difference in like delay of if I'm using the Outlook web app or the local app. So right now they're both in the Outlook web app, and you can see that when I go here, it quickly shows my cursor where I'm typing. And so what is going on? Not much. And you can see that it's almost instantaneously updating between them. And then if I'm on the other account and I type, it's the same thing on the right side, but it shows that Anna's making the edits rather than me. So it's actually really fast when you're using the web app. And I'm super excited about that, because before I didn't use this much here because it wasn't as functional as it was with Google Docs. So I'm super impressed with the changes they made there. What I want to show you now is kind of the difference when you're using the local version of Office and the web app version. So this is now the local version. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to type, and you'll see it's still pretty instantaneous where it goes. And so I can go here, and I can type, and actually it's pretty instantaneous over to this side also. So when you're collaborating, it makes it really nice. You can still see the cursors. You don't have to go to the web version if you don't want to collaborate. When you know somebody is in the document with you, is because their name in the top right appears. So you'll see, hey, Anna's on page 1, Josiah's on page 2, or on page 1, because there's only one page. So you'll kind of see that as you're working with the document, who's in the document. So that's how you know and make sure that you're in the same document. And then just like with the other Word features, you can do comments. Like I can come in here and say, hey, I want to make a comment right here and say new. What is happening here? And then you can go ahead and send that, and you'll see that over here. And this is a little bit delayed. Comments are a little bit slower is what I've noticed. So it takes a bit more time for them to show up. So just so you're aware of that. And there it is. But yeah, so comments are a little bit slower, but typing's pretty fast in between. And then you can just kind of go through and use the normal Word features and collaborate, which is super nice. I'm really excited to use this more, as I didn't think it was built out as much. All right, guys, finally, number 4, what we're going to move into is talking a little bit about SharePoint. So SharePoint's one of those love-hate relationships for me. I think it's actually really good, but I also don't like it because it's so good. And what I mean by that is there's so many permissions wrapped into SharePoint that it makes it hard for most end users to use. Unless you've taken SharePoint classes or you're a SharePoint guru, it's not a simple, quick, easy setup for most people. And that's why I think that a lot of people get frustrated with it, or it doesn't work as well. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail about SharePoint in this video. I will be creating one of those later. If you want to see that, make sure you let me know in the comments below. But what I do want to talk about in SharePoint a little bit is what SharePoint is when you talk about a site. So let's head over to the computer. I'm going to touch on a few key points of SharePoint. So this is my test SharePoint site. So I want to hit on a few key details here, like I said. So you have your documents, which is very similar to OneDrive and the functionality there. It's just limited a lot more in permissions. You also can go in here and SharePoint, think of it as an internal website for a specific topic. So this is really good when you're talking about collaboration. And every time, just so you know, that when you create a Teams shared library, you're creating a SharePoint site. So if you're using Microsoft Teams, which I would highly recommend, and we'll get another video on that later. But if you're using Microsoft Teams, it's creating a SharePoint site in the back end to store all of this data. So that's why you have conversations. You have a home place that kind of is your dashboard of all the activity happening. You can set up calendars in here. Really, the sky is the limit when you talk about a SharePoint site. It's all about using their built-in modules or custom modules and how you edit it and work with it. What I would recommend is building a SharePoint site, playing with it, and remember that you can have fun with it. Like, it's a good collaboration point for your organization, especially for a specific project. Like if it's a long-term project, it's really good to put it all here, share it with the people in your organization that are using it, and make sure that they have the same files. All your emails are attached in conversations. You have notebooks, pages, all of that stuff to kind of go through and say, hey, here's all the information on a project. And that's what this is for. All right, so finally, our fifth topic is Microsoft OneDrive, the syncing app to your computer. And this is where, for me, I spend most of my time. I don't like going onto the web version and finding files or finding links every time and trying to get to it. So what I do is I download the OneDrive for Business and I sync my business files in OneDrive, and then you have to sync separately each SharePoint library that is shared with you. So let's hop over to the computer and I'm going to show you how to do that now. All right, so first things first, if you don't have OneDrive for Business installed on your computer, all you have to do is click on this little grid icon up here and click Office 365. What that's going to do is take you here and you have a spot up here, Install Office. Now, depending on your licensing, depends on what you'll have available here, whether you get Word, Excel, and PowerPoint or not, but you should at least get OneDrive for Business. So go ahead and click Install Office 365 Apps and it will start downloading. So that's going to install OneDrive for Business. And no matter what, I want to show you your licensing is OneDrive for Business comes with basic licensing. So you should always at least be able to download OneDrive for Business to your computer. So once you have that installed, it appears in the bottom right-hand corner as a blue cloud. You can see that barely just below my camera right there. If you right-click it, if you click it, there's a little button that says Help and Settings. Click on that and then go to Settings right here. So you'll see it is linked to my OneDrive account, and then you can link up any other folders or stop syncing a folder if you don't want it to sync. It will show up just like any other shared app on your computer. So all you have to do is click on OneDrive right here and it'll be right there. These are all of my personal files. And notice that I have a test folder shared with me and I linked it back to my OneDrive and it also shows up here, which this wasn't like this way before. I've tried many times. I even contacted support a few years and they said you couldn't do it. So they've added this feature, which just made it so much better for me. So if you have a shared folder, you just have to link it to your OneDrive. You can see it's a link to somebody else's, a shortcut. Then to sync SharePoint sites, all you have to do is go online and find that SharePoint site and sync it. Let me show you how to do that. So you're going to go to your SharePoint site that you want to sync and you're going to click on Documents. Once you're in there, a spot up here says Sync. You just click that Sync button and say Open Microsoft OneDrive. And since I already had it synced once before, I'm going to say use this folder, but this probably won't pop up for you, or you can create a new folder. So I'm going to say use this folder and it's going to show up. It's going to say, hey, getting ready to sync. And if you go to your Drive spot again, now you're going to have your organization's name and there's the test shared library and all of the files in it. It's that simple to sync a SharePoint site. So rather than going online and finding all of them or saving links everywhere, just sync them to your computer this way and you can edit, use the documents just like you were, actually much easier than if you were to go to the SharePoint site. So I would highly recommend the OneDrive app if you're going to be using files. All right. Thank you guys so much for coming in and watching this video with me, learning about OneDrive and SharePoint. As always, I had a blast. If you did like the video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. It really does help me create more videos to support your business. So I thank you guys so much for the time that you spent with me. If you do have any questions or need to know something more about any of these areas we covered, go ahead and leave a comment below and I will try to respond and answer those questions for you. So I hope that you guys have a great one. And until next time, I'll see you then. Thank you so much.